very much for coming. With the overwhelming response from the general community, we at Sinai Grace wanted to share with you the news on how these very brave officers are doing. The doctors and surgeons that have cared for Commander Brian Davis and Officer David Anderson will provide a brief overview of the care they are receiving as well as the outlook for the days ahead. Please hold all questions until our speakers have made their statements. Let me introduce first General Surgeon John D. Weber, Neurosurgeon Philip Friedman, and Trauma Surgeon and the attending physician Susan Seaman. The first speaker will be Dr. Weber.
Thank you, everybody. I was the trauma surgeon on call Sunday when the event occurred, and I was called down to the trauma room. And when I got down there, events were fairly chaotic. We had 2 police officers, actually 4 police officers that were brought in. I can only speak of 2 of them. I saw Commander Davis was severely wounded. He had a fairly large back defect or wound in his back with quite a bit of blood loss. Looked over quickly and saw Officer Anderson, and he had been injured in the head and appeared to have a defect in his right frontal parietal region. But throughout all of this, Officer Anderson was completely alert and oriented, ×3 as we say in the medical lingo. And he was actually making jokes, and we could talk to him, and he was completely conversant and knew what was going on. I was worried about Commander Davis, and we took him right to the operating room based on his injuries. His blood pressure was fairly low when he came in. He had lost a significant amount of blood, and we took him right to the OR. We looked inside his abdomen, and then we explored his back. He had quite a bit of bleeding from his back. We repaired the injuries in his back and actually pulled out quite a few, you might say, shotgun fragments from his back. And then we actually called in the plastic surgery team, and they repaired his fingers. He also had some injuries to his right 3rd, 4th, and 5th digits. And after that, I sent Commander Davis to the CAT scanner to look at, see if there were other injuries. He actually had some spine injuries, which Dr. Friedman can answer concerning the spine injuries. Officer Anderson went to the CAT scanner as well, and we looked at a CT of his head, and it showed some intracranial injuries, and Dr. Friedman can better answer those since he's the neurosurgeon. Otherwise, Commander Davis was resuscitated and taken to the ICU, as well as Officer Anderson.
Well, I was the neurosurgeon on call. As far as the intracranial injuries, I think Officer Anderson is extremely fortunate. The pellets did not penetrate the skull. He did have, as a result of the blast, the shotgun blast, there was a large scalp defect. There were a lot of pellets underneath the skin, and the blast also caused a skull fracture, complex skull fracture, and there was fragments of the bone that were inside the skull. So yesterday we took him to the operating room. We did like what we call a craniotomy, or made a small trap door in the skull. Took out the bone fragments, and there was also a blood clot on the surface of the brain called an epidural hematoma. We took out that blood clot. The biggest challenge, he had a very large scalp defect, and we attempted to repair that. And that's going to be, we need to watch that to make sure it's going to heal properly, because it was quite large. Today he's doing quite well so far, as well as we can expect. And now time will tell.
Dr. Seaman.
Officer Anderson is recovering well. He is starting to move around, and we're getting him up and getting rehab to help him and assist him in moving, as well as Officer Davis. He also is, once we have situated him for a back brace, and we're going to get him up and walk him around and basically get pain controlled and see how he does. But both are recovering quite nicely.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I might, we have Mrs. Davis and Mrs. Anderson who are going to come up together to make a statement.
Hello. I just had to write some of this down because it was, although everybody's role was instrumental in helping our husbands recover, there were a few people, particularly I myself, wanted to thank, as well as my husband. I'm Tamika Davis. I stand before you today on behalf of my husband, my hero, and my best friend, Commander Brian Davis. I stand before you first as a wife, a grateful, proud, and thankful wife. I also stand before you as a proud member of the Detroit Police Department. My husband Brian and myself and my entire family would like to thank each and every citizen, not only within the city of Detroit, but nationwide, for your continued prayers, your well wishes, and your support and encouragement. To our fellow police officers, also nationwide, not just here in the city, we love you. There's no other way to say it, just simply that we love you. I have this bear here that was sent from slain police officer Brian Huff's son, Blair. We thank you. His wife, Melissa, a special thank you, because you know exactly what we both are going through. Thank you for your encouraging words and your beautiful arrangements that you sent us. As a police officer, as a mother, as a wife, you never, being a police officer, your family might get that call, officer down, but as a wife, I never wanted to get it. Neither one of us ever wanted to get it. It's a terrible feeling, and everyone played a role in getting everyone here and doing everything that they needed to do. One final thing I wanted to say was a special thank you to investigator Marcellus Ball, who helped get my husband here. He quoted Dr. Martin Luther King when he spoke about my husband last night. He stated that the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in the moment of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. And I just want to say to Officer Ball that you are also the ultimate measure of a man. And thank you for saving my husband's life.
I want to first thank Sinai Grace Hospital. They have been wonderful. They have been at our beck and call. These doctors have went, in my opinion, over and above what I would have ever expected. They've been informative. They've been right there with us and given us as much support as anyone could ever give. Also, the Detroit Police Department, what a family. If you are not familiar with the real Detroit Police Department, they are the biggest loving family I have ever encountered. We have had just a parade of officers to see our husbands and to support them, and it's been amazing. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of officers that have just been there for support, and it just amazes me. Everyone from the mayor has been visited several times. Chief Godby, he's been wonderful. And everybody, I looked in my coat this morning. I have a handful of phone numbers. Everybody that night, every officer, everybody we encountered, just here, if you need anything, call. I don't care what time of night, what time of day, just call. And my pockets are just full of numbers. I don't know who they all go to, but I know that I could call any one of them, and they'd be here in a snap. So thank you to the community. We've had phone calls from all over the country. Yes. I'm originally from northern Michigan, and northern Michigan has just kind of taken on Detroit like its own family. So, but the biggest thing is that this was a very unfortunate incident. I was so happy when my husband took a job inside the precinct, thinking that, oh, he's safe now. He's not on the street. He's not, facing danger every second like a lot of these officers are. They came into their house. This isn't right. We have to take control of the city, and everybody has to bond together. These things shouldn't happen. And just thank you to the community. Thank you to everyone I mean, everybody's been great. We appreciate it.
And God bless you.
So, we'll take questions. Stephanie. Go ahead.
With the intensity of the head injury scalp wound, how far can you measure that he was saved from not having the bullets actually go into his brain?
I'm not sure I understand.
Like millimeters, like was he like millimeters away from it going into his, like 5
Well,
millimeters?
it never penetrated the brain,
Right.
but it just fractured the skull. So I can't tell you how far away. It was enough to fracture the skull, but it wasn't enough to penetrate.
To the families, I guess, if you don't mind telling us if you've been able to talk to your husbands and what they've been able to tell you. I know some of those conversations are private, but just if they've been able to tell you kind of what happened in those moments. I know that many of the officers in there were heroes that helped to get this guy down. Have you talked to your husbands, and what have they had to say about that moment and how happy they are that they're with you today?
My husband's very happy he's with me today. No, I did speak with my husband maybe about 5 hours after I got here, which was probably around 4:30 on Sunday. So later that evening, I did speak with my husband. He was not very coherent, but over the last 2 days, he's come around. Today, he actually stood up and took a couple of steps today, which was a big deal for us. As far as recollection of what happened, we haven't really gone into that. I'm letting him, process everything himself right now. But he was mainly concerned about the other officers that were injured and, how everyone was doing and his troops at the commands, or how everyone's holding up. That's his main concern right now.
And that was the most amazing thing, is that the first words out of David's mouth was, "How's the commander?" I know he's in surgery. How's the commander? I mean, he wasn't concerned about himself, and that's the amazing thing that I've learned in these last couple of days with the Detroit Police Department. They don't think about themselves. There's not one of them out there that thinks about themselves. There's not one selfish officer out there. They're worried about, how's the other guy? I don't care that I have this big hole in my head. How's the commander? Is he okay?
Yeah, and ultimately, I'm sorry, it's not so much. I know everyone's throwing hero around, and every member of the Detroit Police Department are heroes. And I don't just say that because I am one, but we take an oath to protect and serve. We don't, you don't have time to think about anything, especially yourself. You have to look out for each other and make sure that, we come out the way we came in.
So maybe could you talk about your husband's attitude about the profession he's in and what you expect him to do from here on out in terms of going out and doing it again?
He's still in bed right now saying there's still work to be done. He's a man of great intelligence, and he has his, 25 plus years on the job, and ultimately he has to make the decision. He'll make the right decision that's best for our family, but right now he's still in the mode of, we got work to do. So. That's something I'm not really going to go into at the moment, but he was instrumental.
For your family, the last few days have had to be awful. What's been really carrying you through this? How can you, there's so many people who sympathize with your family, they can't really understand what you're going through right now. How can you characterize it, and what's been carrying you through this?
Well, first and foremost, we're a family of great faith, so God, first and foremost, gets us through it, and I believe they're the same way from speaking with her and people that she's surrounded with. But just knowing that it always can be worse, it's God put them today, them there on the day they were supposed to be there doing what they were supposed to be doing. So that's what's most important, to feel like, everything happens for reasons, no mistakes.
And I'm just so thankful. I mean, as I said, they're asking questions. How close was it? It's inches. And every day for all these guys out there, it could be inches. Yeah. And so, I feel like that I'm the luckiest girl in the world. When I after he came out of surgery and I talked to the doctor, I mean, I've been pretty giddy since then. As for your question about what did he feel, I believe, my understanding, I could be wrong, I mean, this is just my understanding, that he may have been the first one shot. He had not a clue. He was talking to someone, he felt like somebody hit him in the head with a baseball bat. He did not know he was shot. So that's, you know, he...
Have you spoken to any of the other officers that were there and asked them what happened or either one of you have spoken to any of the officers that were there and asked them what happened, what they saw, and taken that in?
We have, but I think that's a Detroit police issue.
And have you all been kind of, did you both know each other before this happened?
No.
No,
we're
no,
big-
we know each
we're
other
like,
now, though.
BFFs now, best friends forever.
Yeah.
No, we've never met.
Describe how the patients are today. Are they communicating? How are they feeling?
Both officers actually have a very good predisposition. They, of course, have pain, but they still have their humor about them. They're very appreciative of the community and the support, and they really are. They're just, you wouldn't know they were injured. They really both have very good positive attitudes, and they're very appreciative.
How soon before they get to go home?
I would say in about a few more days. It really depends on rehab and how they move around and tolerating pain. So I anticipate hopefully maybe by even as soon as the end of the week. Yes.
I believe Dr. Weber was talking about the spine and something coming close to the spine. Would you elaborate about that?
Yes. Commander Davis had injuries, I believe, to T11, T12, and L1, the spinous processes. The spine is a column that protects the spinal cord, the vertebra. And these injuries, I think, are fairly insignificant and should not have any long-lasting sequelae, if I'm correct. And I think the treatment for it is a TLSO brace, which is a kind of like a Roman vest that you put on over your torso. No, we never came close to losing Commander Davis on the table. We were ready to give him blood. We never actually transfused him blood, but we had O-negative blood, which is not cross-matched for his blood type, ready to give him if his blood pressure continued to drop. But we were able to give him IV fluid, and that's what resuscitation is. A couple liters of IV fluid, and we were able to get his blood pressure back up, and he stabilized.
I take it this means that they can go back to work soon. How do you feel about that?
Well, like I said before, my husband is, he's very competent in making the decisions that's best for his family, so we'll deal with what he decides when that decision comes.
Exactly. I mean, right now, they have the injury, but they have to process what happened. I mean, I think they're both just hitting the tip of the iceberg of that one to, process what really happened.
Okay? All right, thank you all very much. Ladies.